Okay, guys, thought we'd finish up here with a look at Stellar to Bitcoin and to the dollar. Since Bitcoin's putting us all to sleep, I thought we'd look over here. We might have some activity. Perhaps a trade that we can, if not ready to enter at the moment, certainly something we could be watching. So part of this is coming from, I've been kind of keeping my eye over here on Lunar Crush, which is very interesting. So today, Stellar, I call it Stella because I drink Stellas. Stellar has ranked up to number 2 on their alt rank. Very high on their Galaxy score, just strength of project. Anything over 50 is strong. So you've got, it's just kind of cranked its way up all week long. So I thought we'd just give it a look, see. So here it is to Bitcoin. Now, when I first bring, let's go down to an 8-hour look at it here. I mean, we've just been in this range, right? It's not really, kind of give it some perspective, right? So you can really see after the long range, all the alts doing the same thing. So we base down here. We just look at the volume profile. Let me go back to a 4-hour. So you see that range really gets established. And while we have some wicks to get through, I'm kind of framing it based off of bodies, right? So I'm not cutting any bodies. Same thing down here. Looks like a base that gets tested. So it's, I don't think it really matters how we label this in terms of count. It does look like, where you could start it here. I don't know that it matters. You could probably bring this up a little higher, but again, I don't know that it matters. It does look like we get an impulse here, and then here's a nice clear 3. So if we start it here, you could be thinking that perhaps that 1, 2, and we're in the process of seeking the top of 3 to dig us out of this range that it's, you kind of look here over to the volume profile that we've been in since September of last year, right? Long, slow grind, but now we've got something here to pay attention to. Which just looking at that, right? So just kind of eyeballing it here, it looks like, as I sit here looking at point of control, and now granted that's visible range, but if we're really focused on this basing that we've had, we're going to split the difference right here. Well, of course, that makes me think wolf range, just as with Bitcoin. So if I just kind of frame this up here based off of my swing low to that, it's always the first pivot swing, right? So I can get the framing on the market. So if an algorithm is in here, and kind of see what they're up to. So looking at this framing, and then the 50 as it's served as resistance, support, back to test before the launch, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Looks like we're underway here. So if this is 1, 2, this I can make a case here that we've got 3, 4. Well, this does look like we could have completed, but either way, as we look here, so just framing this up here now, let me see if I can scrunch down a bit. 3 in could be in here, right? So we're not quite to. Let's go ahead and use this as our measure point here. So if I get right there, well, that's kind of interesting. So if I'm going to use this as my start of 1, 2, and I come up here, well, here would be the 100% of the initial range that the market establishes. Well, here's 100% sitting right in the middle of my 161, 175, where I'm anticipating that third. So if I can get this up here, I kind of like the way that looks. So Jesus, looks like. We could be in the 5th here, so there's potential here for one more little kick up here to complete this, and then of course we just sit patiently and wait for that 3 to come down to create the opportunity for the 4. So if indeed, now we don't have this just yet. I mean that pivot high could be in, but just standard off. It's like once we get this, now of course we got to change the template here. So as we consider a location, so all of this, right? See, we get a little bump here in the volume profile. So there's something down here, and of course you could use any of these wicks for some potential structure here that would be right in front of the 50. Well, here you can see a case here. What comes down and tests it, up it goes, right? So that's exactly what happened there. So if this is going to come down and test anywhere in this range, I think you could probably use these too, right? Just kind of keep an eye on those two. So anything down here, that's going to look, and nothing says it has to come that far. Here's your most common range for a 4th. So if we can, again, not knowing whether or not we have the top in, something like that, I'd be paying attention to. You've got some clear structure here you can use for an exit. Even just the top of this range, if you want to give it a little bit more room, but you really don't want to see a 4 coming down that far, right? It reduces the probability that we get a good kick in the 5th. Not that we don't see it, it's just, again, it's probabilities. So the stronger the play, right? So you could make a case here, well, that certainly we're beyond the golden zone here. You do have a, oh shit, let's use the absolute low here, and perhaps that's the start of it. So we do get a corner pocket here. Get it right on that. Yeah, it looks like I'm slightly askew here, so bear with me a sec. Just get it right on that. Make sure everybody's on the same pivot. Our contender for a 2. Bear with me here. Well, of course, here's your 80%, right? Once we get a pivot, as long as that holds, right? So you might have thought it was here, but once we get it, once it starts to go, right, there's your 80% right there. Boom, right? What's interesting here, note how it goes, it just rips right through and then comes back down and tests it, right, to the tick before going on. Now we've just bumped into the upper parallel here. Now we got more legs. We could be running out of steam here, so it wouldn't be, the end of the world if we didn't make the 1618, but you might anticipate a little more strength in that to give that little kick up. So let's say we get it. So then again, look where the 38 lines up. So this is certainly one to have on your radar. So if we got something like that, boy, does that look attractive. Right, you don't need to give it a lot of room here, right? Just to try and trade with precision. There's no reason to put your stop under the 65, right? We don't want this to turn into a diagonal, so this would be the absolute low point in terms of max risk. So if you're taking it here, I wouldn't give it, 1 tick's all it needs, right? So I would be just a couple of ticks underneath that here, just in case you got a little pumping wick action. But then you're looking for that, right? But ideally, you'd have the median line hold it, right? If you want to try and get it just perfectly. Market doesn't always cooperate, but that's what you look for. So I'd be alerted. I'd have an alert up here if we get a little closer to that 100, that 1618, if it's going to kick up there a little further, and then you're going to have to just wait patiently. Wait, see, can you get the 3? All right, and then that's worth trading all day long. So one to be on your watch list. I think you can. Looks like you might have something over here as well. You've got this prior pivot here. So again, a little something here just to help in terms of framing that where you're looking for that entry. So anywhere, it's 1025, 26 Bitcoin. So it's definitely one to have on your radar. Now, I thought it might be worthwhile to look at it relative to the dollar, just in case as well, if Bitcoin's going to either, regardless of what happens here, so Bitcoin coming out of that triangle, if we're going to scream higher, well, that might put might put a damper on this getting to, might, right? We don't know. Stella could go with it, but might put a damper on that getting up to this 1618 and start that process a little bit early. But then again, if it's going to drop hard coming out of this triangle, right, that's going to, well, that certainly would likely, well, not certainly, but reasonable to anticipate that might put some weight on all of the alts relative to the dollar. So looking over here, you kind of got it's uglier. It's actually a prettier count, at least in terms of that basing action. Here it is, Stella to the tether. Now it looks like this. Did we get anything technical here? Probably. Well, there's 50. So working from this pivot here. So clearly we had something happen here. Now we go down, we don't make target, and now we've kind of worked the other direction. So it looks like, at least at this point, with the break here now of the golden zone, you'd have to check all the way back, right? So we're not there yet. So if this is, it looks like this could be denied. Now you would do it a little bit differently since we get the new low here. So look where we're headed here. So this has got to get through. If this is 1, 2, if that's correctly identified, and we do get an impulse off of the low A, B, C into the 2, well, we got some stiff resistance to get to 100% the length of the 1. Now, again, 3 doesn't have to be the longest, but you'd like to see it if we're going to get a true third up here. Well, we're looking for it up here, right? Way up here to get our 3, 4. Right, that's what we're looking for. Now, can we get through that and get to the 100? Well, it remains to be seen. So let's just take a quick peek here, just looking at this. Well, this, of course, I want to see if I'm technical there. So off of the low, all right, so it's a little, that's a possibly, that could be a front run. It's a little far. It's not terrible, right? So that could be, right? What, you look where we go, right? So, and you get the reaction at the target. So likely this is a front run. You never know for sure, but it would make sense. So it looks like you could have 3, 4. Looks like there could be some more in that. So once again, right, anytime, remember this, right? So anytime we have an internal retracement, right, swing high, right, what are we setting up there, right? So, well, one, we're setting up the algo, right? So we're getting internal retracement that we're looking to go external, but whenever we have that, right, what's the next thing you're going to do? Put the median lines on it, right? So right, here we go. So here, right, just again, it's the same thing. Once we get the pivot, there's your 80%. Doesn't even hesitate. Gets the algo target, interestingly, backs down to the median line. Now we go up and we get the upper parallel. Now, are we done here? Well, not likely, because, of course, we'd be looking for the 3 higher if this is going to hold as a 1, 2. So maybe this is getting started on the 1. Right, if we're going to top up here, maybe we get a little something like that to go up. Now we're going for the 3. So another one for your watch list here, but you got to be watching this relative to how it's going to, what's Bitcoin doing? What's the broader alt space doing? Let's get that dialed in right there. So not a golden, but a true corner pocket in that we get our pivot, it holds, and we get our 80%, right? Again, it's best odds in trading, bar none. So again, you would want to be a buyer here. You've got some geometry here you're bumping into, and of course, as we just looked at it, you got some pretty stiff resistance you're about to bump into here if it's going to get through. So you can kind of put this together in your mind and say, oh, okay, I could see how perhaps a 1, 2. Now that sets up for a bigger 3, 4, and now we're off and we're really rolling instead of relative to the dollar. Well, if it's doing that, you would kind of anticipate that Bitcoin would be rolling as well and pulling alts with it relative to the dollar. But, you know, one chart at a time, one trade at a time, it usually, you know, it can be dangerous to try and read too much into what's going on broadly across the space. So you try and trade them individually, but we know there is a tendency if Bitcoin falls, it'll take the alts with it. If it's going to just continue to, I think we're likely to, something's coming here, right? This is eventually going to break out of this. And my guess is with more of a bang than a whimper. So something's going to come out of that apex here that should be substantial. It'll be a bit of a tell, right? If we drop hard, then certainly this is likely to start its retrace. If we come up strongly, now does Stella go with it, right? Does it pull the alts with it, and what's the relationship to Bitcoin? So definitely a project to be on your radar. I'd have this on your watch list right now, just watching. So which way? Right, so this is a nice trio to have up somewhere. So watching Bitcoin on one side, and then Stella, right, again, looking at its strength, relatively speaking here, right? See which way that goes. So again, I can't, as much as I'd like to, if I can find a trade that's there for the taking, I can't really find one today. But these are definitely to be on your watch list here. And then this is just a ticking bomb right here, right? Something's going to come out of that explosively. All right, guys, there you go. Have a terrific weekend, and I will catch you guys next week.